Verse for opening a sutra. The unsurpassed profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of aeons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. The Flower Adornment Sutra, Chapter 36, Universal Worthies Conduct. 1. The universality of conduct. At that time, Universal Worthy Bodhisattva Mahasattva again addressed the great multitude of all the Bodhisattvas, saying, Disciples of the Buddha, the way this has been proclaimed is just a general discussion of a small portion of the thus come one state that fits the capacity and dispositions of living beings. Why is that? All Buddhas will on at once appear in the world for the sake of all living beings who lack wisdom and do evil, who calculate a self and what belongs to a self, who are attached to the body, who are upside down and doubt, who hold deviant views and make discriminations, who are constantly interactive with all bonds and fetters, who flow along with birth and death, and leave the path of the thus come one far behind. Disciples of the Buddha, I've not seen any such Dharma as a great offense and mystic of Bodhisattvas, giving rise to thoughts of anger towards other Bodhisattvas. Why is that? Disciples of the Buddha, if Bodhisattvas were to give rise to thoughts of anger and hatred towards other Bodhisattvas, that would open doors to millions of obstructions. What are the million obstructions? They are the obstruction of not seeing Bodhi, the obstruction of not hearing proper Dharma, the obstruction of being born in the world that is not pure, the obstruction of being born in the evil destinies, the obstruction of being born in locations of difficulties, the obstruction of having many illnesses, the obstruction of being the object of much slander, the obstruction of being born in destinies where one is obtuse and dull, the obstruction of destroying and losing proper mindfulness, the obstruction of being deficient in wisdom, obstruction of the eyes, obstruction of the ears, obstruction of the nose, obstruction of the tongue, obstruction of the body, obstruction of the mind, the obstruction of evil advisers, the obstruction of evil companions and parties, the obstruction of liking to cultivate the small vehicle, the obstruction of liking to associate with the coarse and vulgar, the obstacle of not believing in or liking people of great awesome virtue, the obstruction of liking to dwell together with people whose views are far from proper, the obstruction of being born in an outside way household, the obstruction of dwelling in demonic states, the obstruction of being distant from the Buddha's proper teaching, the obstruction of not seeing good companions, the obstruction of finding it hard to plant good roots, the obstruction of increasing in unwholesome dharmas, the obstruction of being in low and vile situations, the obstruction of being born in the border region, the obstruction of being born in a household of evil people, the obstruction of being born among evil spirits, evil dragons, evil yakshas, evil gandharvas, evil asuras, evil garudas, evil kinnaras, evil mahoragas, and evil raksaksas, the obstruction of not liking the Buddha Dharma, the obstruction of practicing dharmas of foolish youths, the obstruction of having fond attachment to the small vehicle, the obstruction of not liking the great vehicle, the obstruction of one's nature being often startled and alarmed, the obstruction of one's mind being constantly worried and troubled, the obstruction of fondly clinging to birth and death, the obstruction of not concentrating on the Buddha Dharma, the obstruction of not liking to see or hear of the spiritual penetrations of self-mastery of a Buddha, the obstruction of not obtaining the faculties of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of not cultivating the pure conduct of a Bodhisattva, the obstruction of shrinking back from the deep minds of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of not making the great vows of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of not making the resolve for all wisdom, the obstruction of being lax and neglecting the conduct of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of not being able to purify and regulate all karmas, the obstruction of not being able to attract and hold great blessings, the obstruction of not being able to have keen power of wisdom, the obstruction of being severed from vast great wisdom, the obstruction of not protecting and upholding all the practices of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of liking to slander the words of those of all wisdom, the obstruction of leaving the body of all Buddhas far behind, the obstruction of liking to dwell in the states of all the hosts of demons, the obstruction of not single-mindedly cultivating the states of a Buddha, the obstruction of not decisively making the vast vows of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of not liking to dwell together with bodhisattvas, the obstruction of not seeking the good roots of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of one's nature harboring many views and doubts, the obstruction of one's nature constantly being stupid and dark, because of not being able to practice a bodhisattva's fair and impartial giving, having the obstruction of not renouncing arise. Because of not being able to hold to the thus come one's precepts, having the obstacle of breaking precepts arise, because of not being able to enter the door of patience, having the obstruction of stupid, harmful hatred and anger arise, because of not being able to practice the great vigor of a bodhisattva, having the obstruction of the filth of laziness arise, because of not being able to obtain all samadhis, having the obstruction of being scattered arise, because of not cultivating prajna paramita, having the obstruction of evil wisdom arise, the obstruction of lacking skill with regard to what is and is not the case, the obstruction of lacking expedient methods for crossing over living beings, the obstruction of not being able to contemplate with a bodhisattva's wisdom, the obstruction of not being able to understand and know a bodhisattva's dharmas of escape, because of not accomplishing the 10 kinds of vast great eyes of a bodhisattva, having the obstruction of one's eyes being as if blind from birth, because of not hearing unobstructed dharma, having one's mouth be as if dumb and mute, because of not being endowed with the marks and characteristics, having one's nose faculty be broken, because of not being able to discern and understand the languages of living beings, developing an obstruction in the tongue faculty, because of looking down on living beings, developing an obstruction in the body faculty, because of one's mind being very crazy and scattered, developing an obstruction in the mind faculty, because of not maintaining the 3 categories of Vinaya comportment, developing an obstruction to body, karma, because of constantly giving rise to the 4 kinds of errors, developing an obstruction to speech karma, because of often producing greed, anger, and deviant views, developing an obstruction to mind karma, the obstruction of seeking the Dharma with a thieving mind, the obstruction of severing the states of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of one's mind shrinking back from a bodhisattva's dharmas of courage, the obstruction of one's mind being lazy on the path of escape of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of one's mind wishing to stop and rest from the doors of light of wisdom of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of one's mind weakening in the power of mindfulness of a bodhisattva, the obstruction of not being able to make dwell and maintain the thus come one's teaching dharmas, the obstruction of not being able to draw near to bodhisattva's path of freedom from production, the obstruction of not being able to practice the bodhisattva paths of non-loss and non-destruction, the obstruction of following the position proper to the 2 vehicles, and the obstruction of becoming far distant from the seat nature of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the three periods of time. Disciples of the Buddha. If bodhisattvas were to give rise to a single thought of anger towards other bodhisattvas, that would bring about doors of 1,000,000 obstructions such as these. Why is that? Disciples of the Buddha. I've not seen any such dharma as a great offense and mystic of bodhisattvas, giving rise to thoughts of anger towards other bodhisattvas. Therefore, bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, who wish to quickly perfect all bodhisattva conduct, should diligently cultivate 10 kinds of dharmas. What are the 10? They are one's mind not abandoning any living beings, thinking of all bodhisattvas as being the thus come ones, never slandering any Buddha dharmas, knowing that countries have no exhaustion or end, bringing forth deep faith and delight in all bodhisattva practices, not renouncing the resolve for bodhi, which is equal to empty space and the Dharma realm, contemplating bodhi and entering the thus come one's powers, diligently cultivating unobstructed eloquence, teaching and transforming living beings without becoming tired, and dwelling in all world systems without attachment in one's mind. Those are the 10. Disciples of the Buddha. Once the bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, dwell secure in these 10 dharmas, then he can perfect 10 kinds of purities. What are the 10? They are the purity of penetrating profound dharmas, the purity of drawing near to good knowing advisors, the purity of protecting and upholding all Buddha's dharmas, the purity of comprehending the realm of empty space, the purity of deeply entering the Dharma realm, the purity of contemplating boundless minds, the purity of having identical good roots with all bodhisattvas, the purity of not attaching to kalpas, the purity of contemplating the 3 periods of time, and the purity of cultivating all Buddhist dharmas. Those are the 10. Disciples of the Buddha. Once the bodhisattva, mahasattva, dwells in these 10 dharmas, then he can perfect 10 kinds of vast great wisdom. What are the 10? They are the wisdom to know the workings of all living beings' minds, the wisdom to know all living beings' karmic retributions, the wisdom to know all Buddhist dharmas, the wisdom to know the purport of all profound principles of all Buddha dharmas, the wisdom to know all doors of dharani, the wisdom to know all eloquence of phrasing, the wisdom of skill in means with language to know the sounds and modes of speech of all living beings, the wisdom to make his body appear universally within all worlds, the wisdom to universally appear reflected in all assemblies, and the wisdom to be endowed with all wisdom in every location of undergoing birth. Those are the 10. Disciples of the Buddha. Once the bodhisattva, mahasattva, dwells in these 10 wisdoms, he then can gain entry to 10 kinds of universal entrances. What are the 10? They are all worlds entering into the path of a single hair, the path of a single hair entering into all worlds, the bodies of all living beings entering into a single body entering the bodies of all living beings, ineffably many kalpas entering a single thought entering ineffably many kalpas, all Buddha dharmas entering a single dharma entering all Buddha dharmas, ineffably many locations entering a single location entering ineffably many locations, ineffably many faculties entering a single faculty entering ineffably many faculties, all faculties entering non-faculties entering all faculties, all thoughts entering a single thought entering all thoughts, all spoken sounds entering a single spoken sounds, a single sound entering all spoken sounds, all 3 periods of time entering a single time entering all 3 periods of time. Those are the 10 disciples of the Buddha. Once the Bodhisattva Mahasattva has made such contemplations, he then dwells in 10 kinds of supremely wondrous minds. What are the 10? They are dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all worldly language as non-language, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all thoughts of living beings having no place of reliance, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of the ultimate realm of empty space, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of the boundless Dhamma realm, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all profoundly secret Buddha Dharmas, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all deep and undiscriminating Dharmas, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of casting out all doubts and delusions, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of all worlds being level and equal without distinctions, dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of the sameness of all Buddhas of the 3 periods of time, and dwelling in the supremely wondrous mind of the limitlessness of all Buddhist powers. Those are the 10 disciples of the Buddha. Once the Bodhisattva Mahasattva dwells in these 10 kinds of supremely wondrous minds, he then obtains 10 kinds of wisdoms of skill and means in Buddha Dharmas. What are the 10? They are the wisdom of skill and means to comprehend profound Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom of skill and means to bring forth vast and great Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom of skill and means to proclaim various kinds of Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom of skill and means to enter the equality of Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom of skill and means to clearly understand discriminated Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom of skill and means to awaken to understanding of undiscriminated Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom of skill and means to deeply enter adorning Buddha Dharmas, the wisdom of skill and means to enter Buddha Dharmas through a single expedient, the wisdom of skill and means to enter Buddha Dharma through limitless expedients, the wisdom of skill and means to know the non-differentiation of boundless Buddha Dharmas, and the wisdom of skill and means to not retreat in one's own mind and strength from all Buddha Dharmas. Those are the 10 disciples of the Buddha. Once the Bodhisattva Mahasattva has heard these Dharmas, he should bring forth the mind to revere, accept, and maintain them all. Why is that? The Bodhisattva Mahasattva, who maintains these Dharmas with slight expenditure of effort, quickly attains Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. He becomes endowed with all Buddha Dharmas, in all respects the same as the Dharmas of all Buddhas of the 3 periods of time. At that time, through the Buddha's spiritual might, and because the Dharma is that way, throughout the 10 directions, there were world systems many as fine motes of dust, in 10 ineffably many 100,000 10,000,000 nayutas of Buddha Kshetriyas that experienced the 6 kinds of quakes. There rained down all sorts of heaven-surpassing clouds of flowers, clouds of incense, clouds of ointments, raiment, canopies, banners, streamers, money jewels, and so forth, including clouds of every kind of adornment. There rained down clouds of groups of musical instruments. There rained down clouds of all bodhisattvas. There rained down clouds of ineffably many-formed marks of thus come ones. There rained down clouds of ineffably many exclamations of praises of all thus come ones. There rained down clouds of sounds spoken by thus come ones that fill all Dhamma realms. There rained down clouds of ineffably many adornments of world realms. There rained down clouds of ineffably many increasing of body. There rained down clouds of ineffably many radiating lights, and there rained down clouds of ineffably many spiritual powers to speak Dharma, just as in this world system, with its set of 4 continents, the thus come one was seen in the Bodhisattva's palace under the Bodhi tree in the Bodhi-way place, accomplishing equal and proper enlightenment and proclaiming this Dharma, so too, in all world systems throughout the 10 directions, it was also the same way. At that time, through the Buddhist spiritual might, and because the Dharma is that way, in each of the 10 directions, from further than world systems, many as the fine motes of dust in 10 ineffably many Buddha Kshetriyas away, there were Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, many as the fine motes of dust in 10 Buddha Kshetriyas who came to that land. They filled the 10 directions and said these words, good indeed, disciple of the Buddha, that you are able to speak this profound Dharma of all Buddhas, thus come ones, most great vows and bestowals of predictions. Disciple of the Buddha, all of us have the same name, universal worthy, and each of us has come from a universally supreme world system where a universal banner self-mastery thus come one is, to arrive at this land. All of us, through the Buddhist spiritual might, in every single location, proclaim this Dharma. All that is spoken is just the same as here in this assembly with its multitudes. It is all the same with no elaboration or omission. We have all received the Buddhist awesome spiritual power to come to this way place and give you certification, and just as all we Bodhisattvas, many as the fine motes of dust in 10 Buddha Kshetriyas, have come to this way place to give certification in all of the world systems throughout the 10 directions, it is also exactly the same way. At that time, universal worthy Bodhisattva Mahasattva, through the Buddha's spiritual might and through the power of his own good roots, contemplated in the 10 directions throughout the Dhamma realm, and from a wish to disclose the Bodhisattva conduct, from a wish to proclaim the thus come one's realm of Bodhi, from a wish to speak of the realm of great vows, from a wish to tell the number of kalpas of all world systems, from a wish to explain all Buddhas appearing in accord with time, from a wish to describe all thus come ones appearing in accord with living beings whose roots have matured, to inspire them to make offerings, from a wish to make clear how when thus come ones appear in the world, their work is not in vain, from a wish to make clear that from good roots which are planted, rewards are certainly obtained, from a wish to show how bodhisattvas of great awesome virtue make their shapes appear before all living beings and speak the Dharma for them so they become enlightened, spoke verses saying, you all should be delighted and abandoning all coverings, with one mind reverently hear of bodhisattvas' vows and conduct, how all past bodhisattvas, supreme lions among men, used to cultivate and practice, I now will state in order, and I will describe all kalpas numbers, all world systems and all karma, and how the incomparable honored ones make appearance among them, how the Buddhas in the past make great vows to appear in worlds, and how for living beings they eradicated suffering and afflictions, and how all those lions of discourse perfected continuity of practice, and so obtained sameness with the Buddhas and the state of all wisdom. How they saw in the past that all lions among men sent out great nets of light, universally illumining worlds of the 10 directions. How they thought and made this vow, I should be a lamb for worlds, perfect the Buddha's merit and virtue, the 10 powers and all wisdom. All the many living beings, ablaze with greed, hatred, and stupidity, I should save and liberate, destroying suffering in the evil paths. Having made such vows as these, they were solid and unretreating, perfected cultivation of bodhisattva conduct, and acquired 10 powers of non-obstruction. After making vows like this, never faltering in cultivation, what they did was not in vain, and so they are called lions. within the single worthy kalpa, of the 1,000 Buddhas to appear, all their universal eyes I shall describe in succession. As within the worthy kalpa, limitless kalpas are the same, those future Buddhas' conduct I shall speak of in detail. As is one seed of Buddha Kshetriyas, limitless Kshetras are the same, of future 10-powered on one's conducts, I now tell you. All Buddhas' successive appearances in worlds, according to their vows and according to their names, according to the predictions they receive, and according to their lifespans, according to the proper dharma cultivated by them, as they intently seek the way of non-obstruction, according to the living beings they teach, as their proper dharma dwells within the world, according to the Buddha Kshetriyas that they purify the living beings as well as the dharma wheels, the times and the non-times for proclamations in purifying flocks of beings progressively, according to all karma of living beings, their actions and their faith and understandings differing in grade, superior, middling, or inferior, transforming them so that they cultivate, how they enter into wisdom such as those, cultivate those most surpassing conducts, always do the deeds of universal worthy, vastly rescue all living beings, how their body karma meets with no obstruction, how the karma of the speech is also pure, as are too the workings of their minds, and how none are not that way in the 3 times, bodhisattva conducts such as those, which make ultimate the universal worthy way, so the pure wisdom sun arises and universally shines throughout the Dharma realm and all kalpas of the future, with more countries than mere words can tell, in one single thought are known completely, yet no discriminations made about them. The practitioner can tend towards and enter grounds like those, the most supreme. Of all these bodhisattva dharmas, I will speak a minute portion, how with wisdom which has no bounds or limits, one penetrates the Buddha's states, while entering into all of them, without retreating as one cultivates and perfects the universal worthy wisdoms, completing all of universal worthy's vows, and entering incomparable wisdom. I shall talk about this conduct. In one single mote of dust are completely seen all worlds. If living beings should hear about them, their minds will be confused and go insane. As within the single mote of dust, so too it is in every mote of dust. All world systems enter within them. It is in that way inconceivable. In every particle of dust are dharmas of the 10 directions and 3 times. The destinies and kshetriyas are all limitless, yet can be known with all their differences. In every particle of dust are limitless kinds of Buddha kshetriyas, of their various kinds, all limitless, not a single one remains unknown. Everything within the Dharma realm, with all the varying characteristics and types of destinies, each having differences, can all be discerned and known. With wisdom to deeply enter the fine and subtle, all world systems are distinguished in detail. The coming into being and destruction of each kalpa can be completely understood and described. All kalpas, whether long or short, are known, and the 3 periods of time in just one thought, with practices of being alike or not the same, all can be known completely in detail. Deep entry can be made into all worlds, vast and great, or else not vast and great. One body for limitless kshetriyas, and one kshetriya for limitless bodies, all existing in the 10 directions. World systems of the varying kinds, vast and great, with limitless appearances, every one can be entirely known. Within each of the 3 periods of time, for all the countries without limit, Through endowment with deep, profound wisdom, the creations and destructions can all be known. All world systems of the 10 directions, whether coming into being or decaying, being in that way ineffably many, worthy ones of virtue deeply comprehend. There are either lands and countries with various adornments as their grounds, and all the destinies are also thus, this all because of karma being pure, or else there are world systems which have all kinds of filth mixed in. This too is evoked by living beings. All is as their conduct. When limitless and boundless kshatriyas are understood to be just one single kshatriya, in that way there is entry to all kshatriyas, their number more than can be known. All world systems, each and every one, completely enter into one kshatriya, yet the world systems do not become one, and moreover they are not confused. World systems are either upright or inverted. They may be high or else they may be low. All of this is thinking on the part of beings and can be known completely in detail. Extensive as world systems are, and so limitless and boundless, the various kinds are known to be just one, and the one is known to be the various kinds. All Buddhist disciples of Universal Worthy can, using Universal Worthy's wisdom, understand and know all Kshatriya's number, even though that number has no bounds. They can know the transformations of all worlds, Kshatriya's transformations and living beings' transformations, Dharma transformations and all Buddha's transformations, all of these to the utmost point, and how for every system of worlds, for all minute or vast and great Kshatriyas, the various differing kinds of decorations all arise completely due to karma. Limitless disciples of the Buddha, well learned to enter the Dharma realm, and with self-masteries of spiritual penetrations, universally pervade the 10 directions. Through kalpas equal in amount to living beings, if the names of their world systems were spoken, they also would not come to an end unless the Buddha were to state them. Of world systems and thus come once, the various names and titles, passing through limitless kalpas, could not be exhaustively spoken. How much more does that hold true for surpassing wisdom, the dharmas of all Buddhists of the 3 periods of time, which arise directly from the Dharma realm and permeate thus come one's ground, with mindfulness that is pure and unobstructed, and boundless unobstructed wisdom, speaking in detail of Dharma realms, their other shore could be attained. All the world systems in the past, vast and great or else minute and subtle, which have been adorned through cultivation, in one thought can thoroughly be known. In their midst the lions among people cultivated various Buddha conducts, accomplished equal and proper enlightenment, and manifested all of the self-masteries. In the same way, in the future times, successively through kalpas without limit, the bodhisattvas can completely know all the honored ones of humankind, and all their conduct and their vows, as well as all their states, how diligent they were in cultivation, therein achieving right enlightenment, and know the multitudes of their assemblies, their lifespan as they transform living beings, using all of these portals of Dharma, turning Dharma wheels for living beings. When the bodhisattvas know in that way, they dwell on Universal Worthy's conduct ground, with his wisdom of total comprehension, which produces each and every Buddha, all included in the present time. Each one of the many Buddha lands deeply enters all of these kshatriyas and penetrates throughout the Dharma realm. Within every one of those world systems, each and every Buddha of the present, having obtained mastery of the Dharma, proclaims without obstruction whatsoever. They also know the multitudes of the assemblies, their pure lands and powers, of responsive transformation, and how, exhausting limitless 10 millions of kalpas, they constantly consider those affairs. Of taming masters honored by the world, all their awesome spiritual might and inexhaustible treasuries of wisdom are every bit completely known to them. They bring forth the unobstructed eye, unobstructed ear and nose and body, and an unobstructed vast long tongue, bringing happiness to living beings. Their unobstructed mind, the most supreme of vast, great, universal purification, with wisdom which is everywhere pervasive, knows all dharmas of the 3 periods of time. They well learn about all transformations, transformations of kshatriyas, transformations of living beings, transformations of worlds, and transformations of subduing, and ultimate transformation to reach the other shore. The various distinctions of world realms all remain and dwell because of thought. Upon entering expedient wisdom of a Buddha, this is all entirely understood. In ineffably many multitudes of assemblies, they make appear a body for each one, enabling them to all see the thus come ones, rescuing and saving boundless living beings. The deep and profound wisdom of all Buddhas is like the sun arising in the world. In each and every one of the countries, it universally appears without resting, penetrating all in the world, as being false names with no true actuality. Living beings as well as the world realms are like dreams and also just like shadows. Regarding all worldly dharmas, Buddhas do not bring forth views of discriminations, and those who are well free of discriminations also do not see discriminations. Limitless and boundlessly many kalpas, they understand to be a single thought, and they also know that thought is without thought. That is how they see the world. All the lands and countries without limit, in one thought, are entirely transcended. Yet passing through limitlessly many kalpas, they do not move from the original place. For them all the ineffably many kalpas are just the shortest possible interval. They do not see long or short duration, but make ultimate the dharma of a kashana. Their mind dwells within world systems, and world systems dwell in their mind, but towards this they do not falsely give rise to discriminations of dual and non-dual. Living beings and worlds as well as kalpas, all Buddhas and all Buddhist dharmas are all like illusory transformations, the Dharma realm being totally one sameness. Universally in kshatriyas of the 10 directions, they make appear limitlessly many bodies, yet they know the bodies arise out of conditions and are ultimately without attachment to them. Based upon non-dual wisdom, there appear lions among people who are not attached to there being no duality, knowing there is neither duality nor non-duality. They clearly understand and know that all that is worldly is like a mirage, like light and like reflections, like an echo and like a dream, like an illusion and like transformational changes. In that way, they are caught with and they enter the locations of practice of all Buddhas. They accomplish the wisdom of universal worthy and universally deeply illumine the Dharma realm. They leave far behind defiled attachments to living beings and worlds, yet expansive is their great compassionate mind to purify all that is worldly. The bodhisattvas are always properly mindful, discussing the lion's wondrous dharma. They are purified just like empty space, yet they establish great expedient means. They see worldlings as ever confused and upside down, and so resolve to rescue and cross them over. What they practice is all completely pure, and they universally pervade all Dharma realms. If seen in their actuality, all Buddhists and the Bodhisattvas, Buddha Dharmas and worldly Dharmas are completely undifferentiated. The dust come one's treasury of the Dharma body, universally enters the world. Although it is present in the world, towards the world it has no attachments. Just as reflected images do not come or go, within clear, pure water, you should know it is just the same way with the Dharma body as it pervades the world. With such freedom from defilement and attachment, the body and worlds are both pure, still and clear, just like empty space, and all things do not have production. They know the body does not have an end, is without production and without extinction, neither permanent nor without permanence, as it manifests throughout all worlds. They dispel all deviant outlooks and open up proper views. The Dharma nature does not come or go, and does not attach to the self and what belongs to the self. This is as a master magician makes appear all kinds of things, which do not come from anywhere nor go to any place. The illusion's nature neither has limits, nor is it without limits. Yet in the midst of the great crowd, there manifest limits within the limits. Using this mind of still samadhi, they cultivate all wholesome roots that produces each and every Buddha, and is neither limited nor without limits. Both having limits and not having limits are entirely nothing but false thoughts. In understanding and penetrating every destiny, they are not attached to limits or no limits. The deep, profound Dharma of all Buddhas is vast, most still and tranquil. With the depths of limitless wisdom, they know the profundity of all destinies. The Bodhisattvas leave confusion and inversion. The purity of their minds is continuous. They cleverly, with powers of spiritual penetrations, cross over living beings without limit. Those not yet peaceful, they make peaceful, and to the peaceful they show the way place. In that way, they pervade the Dharma realm, yet their minds have no attachment. They do not dwell in the limit of reality, nor do they enter into nirvana. In that way, they pervade the world and enlighten the flocks of beings. Dharma's number and all living beings' number, they completely know and yet are not attached to. They universally rain down the rain of Dharma, amply moistening all in the world. Universally inside of all worlds, they accomplish right enlightenment in thought after thought, yet still cultivate the bodhisattva conduct, and never do they ever retreat. All the various bodies in the world are all completely understood and known. In that way, knowing Dharma of bodies, they then obtain all Buddha's bodies. They universally know all living beings, all kalpas along with all kshatriyas. In the 10 directions without any limits, there is nothing which does not enter their wisdom sea. There is no limit to the bodies of living beings, and they manifest bodies for each one. The Buddha's body, which has no bounds, the wise ones can all contemplate and see. All that is known in one thought, of thus come one's appearances in worlds, passing through limitless kalpas, could not be extolled to the end. The bodies which all Buddhas can manifest in every location achieve parinirvana. In the single thought they are limitless, and their shariras are each different. In that way, in the times of the future, there will be those who seek the Buddha creation. The ones of decisive wisdom can completely know those resolves for Bodhi which are limitless. In that way, in the 3 periods of time, all the dust come ones therein, can each one be totally known. That's called dwelling in universal worthies conduct. In that way, discriminately knowing the limitless conducts and grounds, they enter the location of wisdom, and their wheel never retreats. With subtle, wonderful, vast, and great wisdom, they deeply enter the dust come one state, and having entered, they do not retreat. That is called universal worthy's wisdom. All the most supremely honored ones universally enter the thus come one state, cultivate and do not retreat, and achieve unsurpassed boldly. Minds without limit, without bounds, karma which for each is not the same, all accumulate because of thought, which they levelly and completely know. The defiled and the non-defiled, minds of study and minds beyond study, all of the ineffably many minds, in thought after thought, they completely know. Bodhisattvas comprehend that those minds are neither one nor dual, not defiled and not pure as well, that they also are not mixed up or confused, and that all rises out of mind's own thoughts. In that way, Bodhisattvas completely clearly see that from all the many living beings, minds and thoughts each not the same, there arise the many kinds of worlds. Using such expedients as this, and cultivating the most supreme conducts, they are transformationally born from the Buddha's Dharma, and obtain the name Universal Worthy. Living beings all falsely arise. The good and evil destinies are all from thought. Because of it, there may be rebirth in the heavens, or there may be falling to the hells. The Bodhisattvas contemplate the worlds as arising from false thinking and karma. Because the false thinking has no bounds, worlds too are also limitless. All of the many lands and countries appear from the network of thinking. Through expedient means, this network of illusion can be totally entered in a single thought. Eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind faculties are also like that. The worlds, different because thinking differs, can all through sameness be entered. Each and every single state of vision can be entered by limitless eye organs, with their various kinds of natures which are different, limitless, and ineffably many. Yet what is seen does not have any difference, and is furthermore not jumbled or confused. In each, according to individual karma, the corresponding retribution is undergone. Universal Worthy, with limitless power, completely knows them all in detail, and each and every single state of vision, through great wisdom, can totally be entered. In that way, all in the various world systems can totally be known in detail. What is more, in cultivation of each and every conduct, there is also never any retreat. Speakings of Buddhists and speakings of living beings, as well as speakings of all countries, and speakings that way in the three periods of time, in their differences can totally be known. The future, present in the past, the present, present in the future, all three periods of time are reciprocally seen, yet every single one of them is clear. In that way, their limitless kinds, to enlighten those in the world, the skillful expedients of all wisdom, have no boundaries which can be obtained.